afternoon from Los Angeles, and welcome to Stock Market Today, sponsored by Interactive Brokers. Now, on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the charts of Tempur Sealy, as well as Skechers, Citigroup, and more. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. It's Alyssa Corum here, joined by Ken Shreve. And Ken, what a day to end the week. We have major indexes finishing strongly higher across the board. The Nasdaq up about 1.3%, though off of its intraday high for the day, still up strongly higher on news of a phase one deal between the U.S. and China in terms of a trade agreement that's expected to be written over the next several weeks, and then hopefully we will see a phase two. But what are your thoughts on what we saw today?
Well, like you said, we did get some volume behind the gains in the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, so that's good. The Nasdaq was up about 2% intraday. Some sellers came into the market late, no question about it. The Nasdaq ended with a gain of about 1.3%. Same with the Dow and the S&P 500. So sounds like we got some sort of handshake agreement late in the session between the U.S. and China on a trade deal. President Trump called it a phase one deal. A Bloomberg report that came out earlier in the day looked like it was spot on that China is going to increase agricultural purposes in exchange for some looser U.S. tariffs. So I think tariffs that were set to go into effect next week are not going into effect. So we got some sort of deal. Again, it seems like a handshake deal at this point. There was some selling late, but overall, I think the bulls have to be happy with better than 1% gains for the major stock indexes.
Yeah,
today.
That's right. And this was kind of the day that we were waiting for, with the Nasdaq now back above its 50-day moving average. Again, like you said, strong volume. So I guess we'll just have to see from here if we can see this rally actually continue.
Well, as one thing, like we discussed yesterday, the bulls wanted to see was a conviction retaking of the 50-day moving average. So we did get good volume in the market today, and volume was pretty heavy yesterday too. So it was not an easy comparison for the S&P and Nasdaq, but good volume, nice gap above the 50-day for the Nasdaq. So I think the bulls have reason to be optimistic here.
All right, and of course, we know one sector that has been really caught up in the trade war is the semiconductor sector. So we do want to take a look at a chip ETF, the SMH ETF from Van Eck, and we did see an attempted, so to speak, breakout here over a cup with handle for this ETF, gaining about 2.3% or so for the day, underscoring strength in chip stocks right now.
Yeah, so the SMH, the ETF that we're looking at here, this it looks like the chart here is showing a close near the high, but it actually backed off highs with the Nasdaq. So it looks like it actually closed in the bottom half of its intraday range. So kind of like the Nasdaq stumbled into the close, but listen, the leadership in chip stocks has been pronounced for several days now, and this was just a nice move by SMH today. Most of our chip-related industry groups ended with gains of about 2.5–3% today, so nicely outperforming the Nasdaq.
All right, and let's take a look at TPH, Tempur Sealy, gaining a little over 3% today, retaking its 50-day line here, and it looks like it has earnings towards the end of the month. What are your thoughts, Ken?
Outstanding fundamentals here, excellent annual earnings estimates. You've got sales growth accelerating, and you've got a pretty decent-looking chart here. Tempur Sealy made like the Nasdaq, a bullish move above its 50-day moving average. Some aggressive traders might have nibbled at an aggressive entry here, but this is still also working on a classic flat base with an 81.95 buy point. So it still has a little ways to get to the conventional entry, but I think aggressive traders got a chance to enter the stock today with that bullish move above the 50-day moving average. So nice looking chart, good fundamentals. It's kind of that mix we like to see.
Yeah, that's right. And Skechers also has its earnings report just around the corner. Some pretty nice fundamentals here too, it looks like, for Skechers, and a cup with handle base that is forming. And Skechers was able to gap up on its last quarterly earnings report. Potentially, we could see a little momentum heading into this next report.
This is another stock that was looking good about a half an hour before the close, and then we got some selling late in the market, so it kind of drifted lower and closed near its session low. But Skechers has still got a good-looking base forming here. We see a handle entry of 37.60, so we're going to hear from Skechers October 22nd, not next week, but the following week. We'll hear from them on earnings, and I'll tell you, it's going to be a very busy week of earnings next week, and even busier the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's right. On Tuesday before the open, we're going to be getting earnings results from Citigroup, and that stock, like it's a little bit of a trend, was able to take a buy point intraday, but backed off of those highs here. So you can see the cup with handle, a buy point there for Citigroup. And again, we are going to get earnings on Tuesday before the open.
Yeah, so Citigroup is due Tuesday before the open. We've got Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. So all the banks are going to be coming out next week. And a couple of key chip makers too, Taiwan Semiconductor and also ASML, which is on leaderboard. So back to Citigroup, you kind of see a common theme here. Citigroup also kind of ended near its session low. This chart did not pick it up because it was taken just before the market closed, but Citigroup faded with the broad market as well. It briefly topped a 70.84 buy point, not by much, but still a pretty technically strong chart. You can see the 3-day win streak for Citigroup is, 10-year Treasury yield has been rebounding back, and that's helped financial stocks in recent days.
Yeah, and on that chart, due to the scaling, the relative strength line, the blue line on there, is a little flattened out, but you can still see that line, which measures price performance versus the S&P 500, is hitting its highest level at least since that handle has formed. So even though it did turn tail right around the buy point, maybe we'll see if it can attempt to clear it again next week.
We'll see what the financials have to say next week. They're really going to be kicking off third quarter earnings season. The financials have been kind of moving in lockstep with the 10-year Treasury yield. When the yield is weakening, the financials are going down, and when it's strengthening, the financials are going up. So sort of like the chip stocks in the trade war.
Exactly.
We'll see what the financials have to say next week, but Citigroup looks interesting.
Yeah, all right. And before we go, just a few quick announcements. It is free access week all the way through the weekend, so make sure you're checking that out at investors.com/free access so you can take advantage of all of our premium features for free, no credit card required. And just a reminder that we did have a new episode of the Investing with IBD podcast drop yesterday. It was a really interesting discussion, so make sure you check that out at investors.com/podcast. And last but not least, make sure you keep an eye out Monday for our latest investing strategy show at the Nasdaq market site in Times Square. You can get all the details on that by heading to investors.com/investing strategies. All right, everyone. I think we're ready for the weekend. It was a big week.
Yeah. Hey, Jed Graham's going to have a lot of this late breaking news on the China trade war at the homepage of investors.com. So check that out.
Yes, definitely make sure to check that out. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here next week.